What's up, everybody? It's Ren from the Set Apart Podcast. And today is a special day because we got a guest rolling on through. You know how we do when we talk about everything and nothing at the same time. But today we're talking about fatherhood. What does it mean to be a father? What's the evolution of fatherhood? What is the ownership that fathers have to take? In this celebration, we are visited by one and only Jonathan Fountain. He's a pastor. He's my friend. He's a mentor, somebody who I've got so much good nuggets of wisdom from. And we're just going to have this dialogue and see where it goes. Stay tuned because we live right now. Did you know you can interact with us and continue the conversation via our online forum? That's right. You can email us today at setapartpodcastteam@gmail.com because this is not just a podcast. This is a movement. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Mentioned before, we have the one and only Jonathan Fountain in the building.
Yes.
Jonathan is, I'll tell you what he is for me. He's a friend, a mentor, my pastor. Really got a lot of good wisdom. Had a lot of years to, first of all, for him to not get so annoyed with me because I'm really good at doing that. But just to get some knowledge and stuff from him. And so today, as I said before, we were talking about fatherhood. Jonathan, what is something that the crowd may not necessarily know about you, like where you're from, what was the upbringing, what did that look like?
All right. Well, first things first, there's only one time that you've ever annoyed me, and that happened about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So it was when LA beat Golden State. Yeah. Yep. That one hurt. Yep.
Yes.
That was rough, man.
Yes, I purposefully wore Laker gear every single time I knew I
No,
was
you
going to be
did.
around you afterwards.
I almost skipped church that Sunday, so I didn't have to see it. But then I was like, wait, I'm the pastor. I got to be there. But so I'm from the state of Florida, born and raised.
Awesome.
Yeah, and grew up kind of like more out hunting, out in the woods, all that kind of stuff. But always active, playing sports, things like that. A lot of my time was spent doing those things, learning about the ways of life, really from my brother and my mom, my grandma, my aunt Dawn. My
Okay.
mom was a gator hunter, all that kind of stuff. But she taught me how to get lost in the woods and find your way out, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah,
Okay. And so just to let you guys know, Jonathan's a Seminole fan.
I am. I'm gonna say, come on.
Yeah. And it's been a hard life of trials for him if he's been
Hey,
a
we're coming
Seminole
back
fan.
up. We're ranked. We're ranked.
I think we even talked about it. Their last good quarterback was Jameis Winston.
Oh my word! I don't even know if he was good. I don't know. I'm still debating.
Yeah, that's the question. But let us know a little bit about like the family dichotomy. And so you said, of course, you said your brother was, I guess that, I
Right.
guess foundation, or if you will, like strong point in your life as far as that relationship is concerned with your upbringing. But let us know the dichotomy. I know
Mhm.
for a large part it was a single parent home, or how many was it? Just you and your brother? To let us know a little bit about that family
Yeah.
dichotomy.
So I have two older brothers.
Okay.
So my oldest brother is 14 years older than me, and he
Oof.
was already So he was already out of the house, pretty much doing other stuff. Not to get into it all, but he was he was
Right.
in the house, almost basically by the time I could walk. So I never had much time with my oldest brother.
Okay.
My middle brother, David, he's 7 years older than me, so he naturally took a father role because our dad was just absentee.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely wasn't there. My mom raised me and my two brothers.
Right.
Of course, grandma was in the picture, my mom's mom, and she helped out a lot, kind of, given that wisdom in life,
Right.
things like that. And then a lot of moving. Um, I think my mom just being a single parent, two older boys or three boys, with me. She had to work two, three jobs,
Hmm.
trying to make ends meet, that kind of stuff. And in America, back in I was born in '84, so aging myself 39. But America really took a trend in a way where things were beginning to get a lot more expensive as well,
Right.
just in our American culture. And so I know a lot of single parents felt that back in those days, those early '90s. Yeah, man. So she wasn't home a lot, working, and
Mm.
so it was just kind of by ourselves most of the time during the week. So it was just me and my brother. When she came home, we tried to do stuff together when we could,
Yeah.
just it was just like that daily grind from there on out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know a lot about. I grew up in a single parent home. I mean, I'm kind of absentee, and my mom, had to have multiple jobs at
Yeah,
all times of hours, just whatever she can get, um, in order to just kind of provide financially, right? And so
yeah.
we had six kids all together. I'm
Oh,
number five of six. But I get you with that gap. As you've met them before, I have two older sisters that
right.
there's 13 years between me and them. And so therefore I always tell people, I I started out with a single parent home. Now I got five mamas. Um,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
like it's just, what I mean, just how it is.
Right.
Um, but with that, and I know, and let me speak from kind of like my context, and then just ask you how you were able to receive this. I know growing up, um, it was a big deal for me in my teenage years to kind of find out what identity was.
Mm,
What is my identity? What I really didn't think futuristic. Like I didn't think, oh, you know how they used to ask that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself
right.
in 10 years? I never thought that far ahead in advance as a teenager, ever. Um, Literally, I thought maybe you got months in advance from me,
Right.
but years. My teenage brain wasn't thinking that, and so as I quested for identity, there was a part of me where I would be honest in saying that I quested for validation,
Hmm.
because lack of a strong male presence in my life. I questioned for um, probably what was the in crowd doing. What was my atmosphere doing? And I hate to be that stereotypical, but let's call it what it is. I was around Section 8 housing
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing.
projects,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
where literally, like I've never seen big houses and all this other stuff at some point in time in my life. And so everything that deemed itself as obtainable was the things that I seen with my own eyes around me.
Hmm.
And so for that, I start looking for validation in those things. Would you say that your upbringing in your teenage years was similar in that sense, or what is it? What did it really feel like? I guess searching for a strong male figure, or was your brother, even though he was close in age, able to compensate for not having that presence?
Yeah. I'd say until he hit his teen years. So obviously I was around 7 when he was a teenager. So he began to drift away.
Hmm.
So I had him up until I was about 7, and then off and on here and there. But he got really focused. And, I don't blame him. He was in
Right.
middle school, high school. He played a lot of soccer. He was a big soccer fan. He was really good at it. So me and him kind of naturally began to have some distance. So it was really just me and my mom, and then my aunt Dawn and my grandma, right? So,
Right.
man, I really took to trying to find my identity really quick, as a guy,
Hmm.
as a man of the home, because I remember my grandma, or she'd like say, hey, like you got to take care of your mom, you gotta
Yeah.
you gotta try to be the man of the home, not in a pressure, mean, weird way, but just I think she knew what I needed. So I took that to heart, but my mom got married. So she's been married and divorced 3 times. So I had some other male figures along the way, which I think made it worse because
Yeah.
when I was about 7, she married a police officer, and
Hmm.
we ended up living in a trailer on a school property. and I didn't have any friends over there, but I had a whole school I could go and ride my BMX bike around,
Yeah.
or go ride the skateboard around, all that kind of stuff. And but that was a better season, I think, financially for us. But man, he not to I try to be careful with this, but he definitely got involved with a lot of drinking, a lot of
Hmm.
alcohol,
Yeah.
more of an alcohol abuse type of a thing. So, in my mind, I think I'm maybe 9, 8 or 9 at the time. I know he's starting to get verbally and physically abusive.
Hmm.
So of course I equated every cop at that time was, plus we lived in some pretty rough areas, so
Right.
some of that influence too, the stereotyping, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, forget the stereotyping, it's real. He sucks, they all
Yeah.
suck. Yeah.
That's
So
what I did. Blanket
yeah,
statements.
I was really mad, man. I was just really
Mm.
mad, and then my mom and him finally split up after it got pretty rough, and then we were out back on our own again. And
Yeah.
my mom used to tell me um, because we used to move a lot, and we'd be moving in the middle of the night, right? And when I was younger, I'm
Mm.
like, why? And she tried to make it fun, right?
Yeah.
She'd just
Yeah.
say, like, hey, it's a new adventure, and
Uh-huh.
now that I'm older, it's because I knew we were getting evicted again, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And so we were back on that path and back living at grandma's house here and there, sleeping on the floor in the room or, whatever. But, thank
Right.
God I always had a roof over my head. But yeah, so I was pretty lost on the whole male figure thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just tried to figure out my own way, I guess, by watching TV or being around some dudes. Like, I played a lot of sports. I started getting into football, basketball, and soccer. Um, and then I finally had some time with my dad, and then I figured out who he was, dude. And he was like that guy that he'd walk into a room and people were just nervous.
Hmm.
He had that old Marine Corps, Vietnam mentality. He's a
Yeah.
type A personality.
Yeah.
And that little bit of time I did have with him off and on, he's a heavy smoker, got that raspy voice and
Yeah.
very intimidating individual. And he never pushed, he just punched.
Hmm.
There's no pushing, there's
Yeah.
no
Straight to it.
fight. No, yeah,
Mm.
so immediately I was like, that's what I want right there.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want. I want that respect.
Yeah.
So it kind of took me on a trajectory for a while.
Yeah.
Wasn't the
That
best.
that makes a lot of sense. When I was like I said, I looked toward my environment as to whom I would want to come and so become. And so um my mom, honestly, my mom listens to this all the time. She always like call me, and she also watches back higher vision,
Hey, let's go.
services and all this other stuff. And so she'll just have a subtle conversation. What did you mean by this? And a lot of times I tell her myself,
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm at that point where I'm like, hey, I'm old. I don't got anything to hide anymore. Let me tell
Right.
you it all, mom. This is what happened in the teenage years. And so somebody who took to interest, I guess, if you will, was somebody who was in the hood, sorry, in the neighborhood,
Neighborhood.
and he was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
But he was like a drug dealer with morals,
Okay.
and it's weird. It's really weird.
Like Robin Hood kind of a thing?
Exactly, like it was really a drug dealer with morals, and
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain because like the media depicts it as such and such, and I'm not condoning any of his actions by far. I'm just telling you kind of the situation. And he was a well-known drug dealer, and he would literally, it was me and my friend, and he would be like, hey guys, like if you need something, at that point in time we was like, cutting grass or doing stuff to try to get a little extra money. He's like, if you need something, if you need some work or whatever, stuff like that, I got stuff you can do around the house, but you'll never get into what I do.
All right.
You'll never get into what I do. And so his morals would say that um, he wanted to keep us away from that type of life, but he
Right.
did look out for us. And so
Right.
as a teenager, it was hard to um, not connect those dots. Like, oh, you're so well off because you do this.
Right.
oh, this is the idea of success from where I come from, right?
Mhm.
So you start leaning more towards that type of life. And then I literally say that sports in general saved me because, like, when I was on the field of play, when I was on the court, when I was on whatever sports season it was, I was not on the streets.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so
Sure. Yeah.
there's a
Me
portion of
too to
that
help
that
me
saved
out.
me. It does. It really does. It gives you. I don't mind, especially because I thought I was smart as a teenager. I really thought I was smart. Now looking back, I'm like, dude, I couldn't be more dumb in that situation.
Right.
Um, but you will gravitate to people that you've seen physically with your eyes. Rap culture was big. Was big. You know, you wanted the big cars. Everybody wanted the big cars, the
Oh, man.
money,
Yeah.
the shiny things, um, the classics. And I don't know, and I'm pretty sure you have like some of this in the Southern root, but um, we at that time did not want a new car. New cars was not as, I want to say, popular as they are these days. Like, the
Right.
idea of success was an old school on some rims, shiny paint
Yeah.
with some music
Yeah.
thumping.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the idea of success. And so you started to go towards that. You started to pursue that stuff. Like, that's what I want my life to look like. It wasn't even until I want to say the beginning of my senior year where people started to say the word college to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Those people that send me letters because of sports?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Sure. And the only thing I knew about college at that point really was because, like, a lot of my family didn't go to college. The only thing I really knew about it is that you had to pay for it. I'm gonna go somewhere to pay my money
Right.
for what? I'm
To
in
fill
public
out.
school right now. I'm free.
Right. Right.
And so, and then you graduated high school, which again, in that environment, that was the idea of success. Graduating high school,
Mhm.
that's success. People would get into a trade and everything else, but
Right.
that's where we are. That's where we were. But now we get on this trajectory towards finding um, male figures, strong male figures, to actually send us on the right path. At what point in time in your life, and I'm talking about beyond the teenage years, do you feel like you had either one, maybe more, strong male figures that helped start to make you mold what this whole manhood thing looks like?
For me, to be honest, I can't, because we were talking about this before, and I honestly can't think of a time where I had that person.
Hmm.
Um, so like, I was inspired to be more like my dad. Then I began to inspire to be more like my oldest brother, who was kind of taking the reins of my dad or trying to. So I was like third generation, if you will, of trying to be this attitude mentality. Like
Hmm.
I don't even know if you know, but like I didn't even finish high school. I dropped out my sophomore year
Hmm.
at the time because I got involved. Well, like I got involved. I did get involved with some guys, but they were older guys that were selling drugs in the town that I grew up because. So we were pretty poor, but my mom married another guy, really nice guy. Me and him didn't get along well, and it wasn't his fault; it was mine. I was gone
Yeah.
by the time she got married mentally. So he didn't have much say because I didn't give him any say.
Yeah.
But the guys at this stage that I allowed to have some say were more just tough, mess you up, didn't care about law, that mentality and
Yeah.
I'm not scared, all that stuff. And so that's where I gravitated to and I began to sell.
Yeah.
I began to sell to students within our high school because the high school that I started going to, I did not fit in because it was a ritzy school. My mom thought it would be good for me to go and get out of
Right.
the other situations I was in the past. And so we moved to a place called Altamont Springs. Doesn't that sound? I,
Altamont.
yeah, man, it sounds rich to me. Like it just even sounds like it, And I'm like,
When
why?
you put springs on the back of it, yeah,
Yeah,
kind of.
I'm like, I don't. What are we doing here, mom? Like, I didn't fit in at all,
Yeah.
got into a lot of fights and all this stuff, and I didn't like how a lot of these like young boys would pick on the I don't know, they'd call them, like, the fat kids or the
Hmm.
stupid kids, or I
Yeah.
hated that, man. So I say all this to say, I guess I was just developing a mixture uh,
Yeah.
of a mindset, but so I dropped out, started selling, got involved with more guys that way, the older guys that, obviously were just using me to just kind of run, push,
Right.
get some new clientele, younger high schoolers, that kind of stuff. And I was able to, and I made good money doing it.
Right.
So I dropped out.
Yeah.
I moved out of my home and got my own place by the time I was 17, and just did my own thing, got my own cars and all that good stuff. And so met my wife Jennifer, which
Yeah.
my wife today. But I didn't know how to be a guy. I didn't know how to do all that. So
Right.
long story short, I guess the greatest introduction of a man into my life was a plethora of men that I had to learn what not to do from.
That's good.
And then ultimately just Jesus Christ.
That's good.
Just when I accepted Christ at 21, I really had no idea, man, what it meant to be a man, like a real man. And that his testimony throughout Scripture, really, honestly, I'm not just saying it just to say 'cause I'm a pastor, but like genuinely, that's when I really learned what is manhood supposed to look like,
That's good.
things of that nature. And so it really spun me for a loop, but in a good way.
That's good because that's exactly the segue that I wanted to take. I think I accepted Christ. I said the words. I tell people this all the time. I said the words at about 15, 16 in that range.
Hmm.
I think I spent the next 3 years of my life understanding what those words really meant.
Yeah.
I got it. I got it. I understand. You confess with your mouth, you believe with your heart that Jesus is Lord, shall be
Mhm.
saved. By
Yep.
grace, not of works through yourself, but by Jesus dying on the cross for your sins. I,
Yeah.
I
Right.
can say it. I can write it in the back of my mind, even at that point in time. But really understanding what does this look like to
Yeah.
live a life that is saved. I've been saved, like worthy of that call, if you will.
Right.
And so um, through there is where I found that validation. Um,
Right.
the first Bible verse I've ever remembered, and I don't even know if I told you this before, but a lot of people, John 3:16 is everywhere. Some of these, popular verses is everywhere. But the first verse I ever remembered, I wrote it down even before I gave my life to Jesus, was Psalms 27:10. For when a father and mother forsake you, so God will take you up,
Mhm.
and um, and He'll never forsake you. And it goes on to that. But that to me needed to be said.
Mhm.
That to me needed to be said because of the absence of a father figure. I needed to know that I belonged.
Yeah.
That verse right there was huge to me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Good.
therefore started that maturation process. What are you gonna say?
No, that's really good. And yeah, yeah, those are strong verses to have in your mind, and your heart, especially when you're in that battle, because
Yeah.
that's where I was at. So I'll be real with you, everybody that's listening. It's I really acted really tough, like I wasn't
Mhm.
scared. But to be honest, I was petrified inside.
Yeah.
Even doing the stuff that I was doing, and trying to be like somebody that I'm not.
Mhm.
Man, it was exhausting. Absolutely, absolutely exhausting, mentally, spiritually, in my life, physically. Trying to be hard, trying to, I got arrested one night. Yeah, you know what I mean. And it's like an accolade, right? And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, right on, And it's like, it's just, yeah, I guess it's the epitome of being a fool.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't. I knew I wasn't doing well, and I had some other men around me that I could have pulled positive things from, including my own dad. It I'm not even gonna, now that I'm older, it's not all their fault. It's
Yeah.
in those moments, and whoever's listening, if you're in this place, it's on you, because you can honestly learn good and bad from everybody if you're willing to listen. And the problem is we block out certain positive things that we could put into our lives that could
Mm.
make big difference because we just don't want to see it in the
Yeah.
moment. But you gotta try to get yourself out of that funk and learn good and bad from you can learn it from everybody.
Right.
But
You're right. And I used to think that I used to even yeah, like even after accepting Christ, I used to think like I was like, man, why is like I know and I believe in what I said and the decision I made, but why does it look like everything on TV and these big cars and everything is where the fun at?
right,
But the Christianity in the church was like, man, why is this so boring?
yeah,
Why is this so? I want to be a fun guy. Like as a
yeah,
teenager, this is my mindset.
yeah,
And so fighting that was a real deal for me. But I'm glad that we talked about that because we get to talk about the origin, right? The things that
yeah,
made us us. The things that maybe even sometime I'll be willing to admit that I'm not proud to say, but I'm proud of the fruit that it bring later in life because I
right,
understood and I appreciated things a lot more. So now, in my terms of life, I have 0 kids. Um, I listen, you me, and if you're listening to this, this is a real confession from a boy born in Dayton, Ohio. If I sat up here and told you that I'm in my 30s with 0 kids, like have a parade. We would have never seen this coming. We
yeah.
like somebody who knew me at 15, at 14 is like, nah,
I
before
got
you
enough
leave.
to share.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Before you leave high school, you
yeah,
got it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so that's the mindset and stuff that I'm coming from. So to look back at where God is had me, and not only where He brought me through, kind of that testimony, but also um, how He's made things today in my life so much sweeter because of it.
yeah,
I can understand. I'm way more patient. Like I know it sounds crazy, but I'm way more calm. Like when people are like, "Hey, do such," I'm like, "Hey, is that really big of a deal?" Like
right,
I've been through
right,
things 100 times worse. I don't
yeah.
know if we want to raise the flag up the pole for that one. And so, would you say, and before we segue kind of into where you are now in life, would you say that that time in your life, teenage years and even beyond, kind of prepped you for? I mean, you're a pastor now, so did it prep you for the work that you're doing in ministry today?
Yeah, for sure. I just with a lot of the people that we come in contact with, I one of the things that I get commented about the most, I would say, as a pastor, for me over the years, is people have said like, without even knowing me, they're like, it seems like you get me, like where I'm coming from, almost like. And I know a lot of pastors get it, but in people who aren't pastors, they don't want to open up unless they feel like a pastor. Have you ever been
Yeah,
there yourself? Like, do you even know what I'm doing? Like,
yeah,
because I think in people's minds, they think, oh, if you're a pastor, everything's been great. You probably grew up as a pastor's kid, everything.
yeah.
I don't know. And so, um, that's one of the things that I've had the most is people say like you're very passionate about like real life, real things, and it just comes off, I guess, in the way I communicate or the way I talk to
Mm,
people. So that's been a blessing. And I've long time ago, I had an older man, just wiser man of God, and he said, "Hey, lean into that, because
mm.
that's something that God has done in your life." So every time you preach a message, even though you might have prepped 2-3 hours for that message, really God's been prepping that message in you for the last 30 some odd years,
Wow, that's
right?
good.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, okay. So he's always encouraged me to lean into that part of your life. So, but yeah, it's definitely made me who I am today.
That's good. And so fast forward to the point where now you are a father.
Yeah,
Now before today, I want to talk about and of course I'm very close with your family. I love your family. Like I
they call you
will
Uncle Bernard, man.
exactly. I would
Yeah,
go to bat for any one of those kids. Those kids, multiple of those kids have made me cry tears of joy before. I would never admit that. But to them. And I kid you not, his just for people who's listening, his girls have made me even rethought things in the sense of this. Look, so in the terms of my dating life, right? Um, there was a time where I truly committed myself to healing and singleness on purpose. And I'm like, okay, I technically do live alone in this place, but I'm like, man, if I bring somebody unworthwhile to those kids, and then they either get strongly attached and they not and that person is not
Mhm.
of real substance, and then I gotta just break that off. I was like, man, I don't want to do that to them either.
Yeah.
So like those are thought processes. So that shows you guys the closeness. But let's rewind to number one, your first one, Liliana. When you first became a father, how did your for lack of a better term, fatherhood or approach change even from then to now?
Oh my word, man. So I mean that's 17 years ago, right? When that
Yeah,
moment happened. So uh I mean so we had just moved from Florida to Georgia because the I had to I we had to leave Florida because my wife and I were trying to mend our relationship because we hit some pretty rocky ground. Plus the people that I was involved with, um, they were the kind of people you don't just kind of just go, hey, I'm out
yeah,
and not have
yeah,
some kind of a repercussion.
right,
So I needed some help, I needed some protection, and we just had to get out of there.
yeah,
So so we had just started that journey. Jenny was pregnant, at that
okay,
time with Liliana. So that's why I bring all that up. It's part of that context. And we had moved to Georgia, and man, I did the best that I could. I was praying. I didn't know really how to pray. I didn't really
right,
know what I was even asking for. I just knew that I was hurting. I was finally able to admit that I was scared. That was
mm,
huge, man. Right? Like
yeah,
actually being vulnerable was, that was a no go. But I
yeah,
began to allow some vulnerability happen. And so when you take all of that, and I know that was by God's design, Liliana's born, right? About
hmm
5 months later after that. And it was the perfect time because it was like to be honest, man, when she was born and I looked at her, it was a surge of like my whole life. Like literally, I know some people are like, man, this is crazy, but like it literally like my everything flashed almost of
mm,
like I can't be that person with her.
yeah,
It was a very immediate moment that was very prominent in my life. I mean, seared in my brain, my heart. Where I looked at her and I just promised that I would be the man of God that
yeah.
I knew I was meant to be, which was really scary because I didn't really know what to do, but I just knew it was in my heart. So yeah, huge, big impact.
That's crazy. And so now, fast forward, you are now a father of five.
Yeah, man.
Five. Yeah, that's a at least you said you at least wanted a starting five of in basketball. You at least wanted
Yeah,
a
I'm a
starting
basketball
five.
fan, right? Yeah.
And so that consists of four girls
Yep.
and one boy.
That's right. Now, most people
Um,
ask me if we had the boy last because we've been trying to have a boy the whole time. Because then most people, their assumption is there's no way y'all meant to have 5 kids. Like you were just trying to get that boy in there, right? And it's like,
yeah,
oh, he was our second
he
kid.
was
We had
number
3 more
two.
after you. Then people were like, what? So you meant to? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because like that's my situation, right? 6 kids, but they were trying and trying and trying for the boy. I didn't come until number five.
Look at
So
that.
that's my
Yeah.
situation. Um, and so and we got 4 girls, 2 boys.
Mhm.
I tell Aiden, which is his son, I tell him all the time. I was like, dude, man, I have 4 sisters. Like, if there's anybody that understands your pain, it's this guy right here.
Yes.
And this is what I mean by pain. Sisters, women out there, you guys are amazing. You guys are special. But let me tell you something that maybe you didn't know, but you need to be reminded of. We speak a different language, even from adolescence.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We
Yeah.
speak a different language. It's the ways that like a young boy or a man would carry himself, where a young girl or a woman would do something totally different, even in the way that we think about things. And so,
Mhm.
what is that dynamic like in the house of? I mean, not only 4 daughters and a son, but a wife. So, like, what is that like in a dynamic in terms of just the everyday different personalities.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. It's diverse for
Yeah.
sure, right? And so Jenny and I, we're not scared of diversity, and you know that about us. We enjoy diversity, and I think one of the reasons why we do is because in our home it is very diverse, and so
Right.
we either control all of our children and put them in the direction we want them in, or we allow them to be who they are by God, and
Mm,
create an atmosphere in our home where we do, no matter what, have non-negotiables. Like, hey, we're going to do devotions in the sense of we want you to learn more about God, and we have some standards in the home, things of that nature. But at the end of the day, that we don't want them to not really discover the why they are and the who they are,
right. That's
right?
good.
And you hear me say
And
that all the time.
elaborate a little bit before you go forward on that why they are and who they are part.
Yeah, so when you look at scripture, you look at, man, we have purpose, in why we're on this earth. God gave every human being an actual purpose, and people a lot of times confuse. You've got the who you are, your personality, your traits, your likes and your dislikes, which normally we allow that to push us in a direction of maybe what we do for a living or work, things of that nature. But if we're not careful, and we find this a lot with people, is that you live a whole life of the who you are, but unfortunately, until it was very late in their life, or maybe never at all, they never discovered the why they are.
Hmm.
What is my real purpose on this earth? Like, was there something more that I was meant to do that I could have done? The answer was probably yes,
Yeah.
especially if you look at it from God's perspective. So we try to parent the best we can with understanding both those aspects. That there's the why our kids are, the personality traits, and this and that, but or the who they are, but and then the why they are. Say, hey guys, there's a God given purpose of why you have all these characteristics and traits and stuff.
That's awesome. That's beautiful, and it's cool to say because, like every single one of his kids, for the listeners and for the viewers, they're different personalities.
Yeah.
Like I would say, very different. They have some similarities in there, but they're different personalities for
Mhm.
sure. For example, even with like the girls, like I would definitely not say one is just like the other, or it's crazy. They're all
Mhm.
different individual people with different personalities, and so as you trail this road of fatherhood, um, with as we covered before, not having that vivid example. I'm this is not a complaint. I think when both parents are in the home, it's amazing. It's beautiful. You have the benefit of your kids reaping the benefit of this, and so the way that Aiden could look at you and say, "Hey." These are the things that my father did, and I want to be like, and like he has that mental picture of it. Whereas you had to piece together some things. You had to piece
Mhm.
together maybe some influences, direction, the good versus the bad. You kind of had to make sense of that stuff on your own. Now that you have a family and you are a father of a household, um, how? I mean, this is a very broad question, but how do you do it? Like, how do you come from not really having study notes, but then walking into this and saying, like, no, I'm going to be the best father that God has will equip me to be.
Um, well, it's definitely got to start with humility, and I'm not the
Right.
most humble guy, so I'm not saying, hey, like I'm humble, but you gotta eat some humble pie, man, over the years,
Mm,
for sure. Because if you don't, you're never really willing to look in the mirror.
yeah.
So there was quite a few years that even after I was saved, I kept justifying bad actions.
Mm.
Um, and I'm so good at it, to be honest. I
I
I always
mean,
tell my
aren't we all?
kids, yeah, I always tell my kids, like, the greatest salesman that you will ever meet in your entire life is yourself. You
Hmm.
will sell yourself on anything if you're not careful, good or
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And I kept selling myself, and I would be like, well, I have an excuse. I have a reason. This is why I am the way I am. And God just kept reminding me throughout the word and through the Holy Spirit that yes, but that was your past.
Hmm.
through my grace, all things are new.
Made new.
And so allow the past to maybe be a reminder of, I don't want to go there ever again, but it doesn't need to keep creeping into me justifying myself, because that's pulling your past into your now or your future, and it's not necessary. And so being humble about it and just realizing that, man, I got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And just because I'm dad and I said so doesn't mean that I was right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's huge.
But these are all things and principles, to be honest with you, man, that I really learned in scripture.
Hmm.
And then when I went to college, so I went to Bible college to be a pastor. Later in life, I already had 3 kids, so I was definitely one of the older guys there in the school. But I did meet some really incredible, awesome men while I was there. To be honest, they helped me tremendously. And one individual named his name is Dr. Dave Tice. He's in
Hmm.
Las Vegas. He raised 6 kids in Las Vegas culture back in the mafia days, like old school Vegas days.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that God, during this season of my life of learning and growing, gave me someone like him. So later on in life, God gave me some opportunities, and I just was like, you know what, I need to be soaking up from these men. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
learned a lot after I was already a dad to be a
Mm.
dad. You know what I'm saying? But it allows me now as a dad to look at my son, and like Solomon says this to his son Rehoboam in the book of Proverbs. He actually says to him, he says, "Son, follow me and do as I do," and he says, "Say as I say."
Hmm.
And most men, I think, in American culture, or maybe globally, I don't live anywhere but America, so,
Right.
but really, it's hard for men to say that to their kids these days, because
Yeah.
it's like, man, don't do what I do, don't say what I say. And I just came to a place where I was like, I want to be able to look my son in the eyes and say, you can follow my life pattern, and it'll lead you to success.
That's good.
Right. And I really do. And I know that was the heart Solomon had with his son Rehoboam. So that's energized me more to try to be not just a dad, but a godly dad.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's good because I feel like we were raised with a generation of do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, for sure, man.
And
Yeah.
realizing that it's no way to separate the two.
Right.
Um, so if you're a parent out there and you think that there's a way to separate the two, it's impossible.
No.
You have
No.
people who look up to you. You have people who watch everything you do, and you're teaching them something without saying a word.
Yeah.
And that's even rough. I mean, because you not only have to monitor and have that relationship with your kid, but also, um, Lord, continue to be with me daily because
Right.
I want to be conscious of the things that I'm doing that I'm not saying, and
Right.
they're learning from.
Yeah.
And so that's huge. I'm glad that you said that. But let's let's take a turn because like the good thing is that as I know, not only are you a pastor, but there's different ways and different to me impressions that pastors can lead, right?
Mhm.
I've seen them throughout my life. I've seen the pastor who they do a good job at what they do. They have a great staff, but they equip their staff to go in here and do the legwork, if you will.
Mhm.
I've seen old pastors that they're pastor by name and kind of how the leadership goes as far as the meeting, but not really have a presence. From somebody who have seen you throughout the years, you're very much so a person who has the presence of knowing people, who have the presence of kind of doing the leg work and being active, not only on a Sunday but throughout the week, and just in general. How is balance? What does balance look like
Yeah.
between 5 kids and a wife?
Yeah.
And so much more. It's so much more than a job.
Yeah.
And that's why, because so let me back up a little bit because I think men do struggle with the I want to go and make sure my family is well taken care of. I
Right.
think that's a thing. That's a thing. Like I know people right now, we know people right now that we can, name off that are gone 90% of the time. Just the so you're there physically. You live in a home, you're married and you have a two people's home, but it almost feels like one because you're not really present and you're doing everything. So to me, even more so, imagine that it's not just financial gain, but then you got souls attached to it. Of
Right.
course, you care about that. Of course,
Right.
you care about somebody's life being bettered because of a conversation, because of time, because you pointed them to the Word of God, because you took the time to even listen. Um, so, with all of that, and kind of the the wear and I don't want to say wear and tear of the call in general, it's important.
Yeah.
So, how do you then balance 5 kids, a wife, and then the entire the ministry that is kind of like always on the clock.
Yeah. And I'd like to add before I answer the question, I'm a church planner and pastor, so the last 16 years of ministry or 15 years of ministry for us, we're more entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
So before I answer this question, because I know some people who listen to this, they may say, well, his schedule's through the church, so it's much easier for him to balance.
Mhm.
But I work 6 days a week, the grind and construction or whatever. And you could phase me out on this, but before I answer, I just want everybody to know that for all these 16 years, I've always had to work other jobs alongside with pastoring,
Mhm. Mhm.
because that's my calling as a church planner, and maybe one day I won't have to do that, but
Yeah.
I don't mind. It's part of I enjoy it, like you said. I like the grind. I like to stay
Mhm.
busy. So and there's been seasons where I wasn't pastoring, where I had to go back and work service department manager. Like I've done that for years with
Mhm.
Rollins Corporation, Orkin Pest Control, Terminex, and being a department manager, which is can be very busy. Very
Right.
you're on call a lot. You got a lot of employees under you. So I say all that to say, in order to keep a balance to everything, you have to determine what your non-negotiables are first.
Hmm.
I see a lot of Americans today, whether Christian or not, because I do a lot of counseling too, with marital counseling and things like that, or with teens, and I find this consistently is that people get their jobs, they get their schedules, and then they try to fill the voids where they can with everything else, with family,
Mhm.
devotional time or vacations or whatever. And we've got it so backwards right now.
Yeah.
We're allowing culture to tell us what our schedules are going to be because we're so scared to tell oh, this is a great job opportunity. No, because I can't work 7 days a week, or I'm not
Yeah.
work, Sundays, because I am a Christian and I want to be at church with my family. We've lost a backbone, to be
Yeah.
honest, just to be blunt. And because we've lost that backbone, more and more corporations, what do? Well, we're going to keep asking them because we keep
Yeah.
getting. And I think if people would just stop giving in so much to the corporate culture of America in that area, it would begin to pull back some, and you would see more time being freed up for the American families. Again, Christian or not,
Mm.
doesn't matter.
That's good.
Uh, so we discover our non-negotiables. Our non-negotiable is Sundays is a day that we give to God and our family. So we do both on that day. We don't just say it's all for God and we don't do nothing. But
Yeah.
we enjoy our day, and we may go to church on a Sunday morning and have some people over from church on a Sunday night and have games, activities, jump on the trampoline, barbecue. But like that's what we try to do on our Sundays.
Right.
We enjoy that. And then school, obviously, schoolwork, and then whatever else we have time for, what sports or whatever, we know where those can fall in place because all the non-negotiables are where they need to be. So,
Right.
does that make sense?
That
So,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, people are stressing themselves out because their non-negotiables are moving all the time, which that means that they're really not non-negotiables. Um,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, stuff like that. I just met with a married couple not that long ago that they're just having such a hard time getting
Hmm.
time together with their kids and
Yeah.
them, and they're having such a hard time. And I said, "Well, what's your schedule look like?" Well, that was my first question, and they've got 3 kids that play sports, and now they're on travel teams, and one's in softball, one's in soccer. The other one's looking at playing football now, and it's like
Yeah.
you know, um, people are sacrificing their family at the altar of sports, and
Hmm.
and I've seen pastors sacrifice their family at the altar of the church ministry, and both are equally as bad.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So we have to create non-negotiable type family oriented schedules that really produce good outcomes, good fruit. So
that's good. Keep it number one, number one. That's good. And I
gotcha.
think that's huge because like if you're not mindful of something like that, I can see that getting away from you.
Oh,
Like
it's so
it
fast. And it
snowballs.
does it to us, so we have to,
Yeah.
pull it back sometimes and go, "Wait, hold on,"
Mhm.
because then we start stressing out and everybody's fighting, everybody's arguing, right? Because the stress is up,
Yeah,
and it's because we're not determining our family schedule that actually produces success.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. And it probably looks different. Would you say that it looks different for every single family, based on the capacity, the
yeah,
the size, if you will?
yep, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, and we're sport. We're big into sports in our home, and
Right.
we ride dirt bikes, we go camping, we do all this stuff, and we're still able to do all of that. Or like my daughter, I told her, I said, "Hey, if you feel like God's leading you to be a WNBA star one day, I mean, but we can only do certain days. Like that you can't travel on Sundays." And she told her coach that one time, which was a testament to her faith.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and you know what he said to her, which was surprised her, is that he wishes that more families would stick up for things like that. I was shocked. I didn't even.
Wow. Yeah, you
Yeah,
expect for them to get mad or something.
and
Yeah.
it was crazy, and I was like, wow, here's God's using at the time. I think she was probably 14, 13, 12, 13. I don't know, somewhere there.
Yeah.
And but and then it encouraged her to go, wait a minute, like my dad's not he's not off his rocker,
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, look, if God wants you to do that, you keep those non-negotiables and you'll find a way. You'll get there no matter what. And I think that's what other things families are missing. Like we think
Yeah.
we have to do it the way the culture is telling us to do it, and we don't.
That's good. That's really good. So I mean, and we are coming up in time right now, but this is what I wanted to end on.
All right.
Two things,
Okay.
two pieces of advice. If you
Lightning
could give
round.
two pieces, lightning round, two
All
things.
right.
If you could give advice for new fathers, people who are going to be fathers or just became fathers, what
Mhm.
advice would you give them to kind of prep them for maybe a journey that you've already been on?
Don't give up hope.
Hmm.
Don't lose hope. No matter how many times you've messed up or you've beaten yourself up for responding wrong or saying something wrong, or maybe you're dealing with addictions and you kind of keep relapsing. Whatever it is, don't give up. Don't stop trying to be a god. I'm going to say, don't give up trying to becoming a godly dad.
Hmm.
It's never too late. So don't give up
That's
hope.
good. And number two, for those people who are for those fathers who are not only fathers now but they're married,
Okay.
and they're saying, what does life look like still investing in my marriage, but we just instantly became overwhelmed by birthing this
Yeah.
beautiful creature into this world? What
Yeah.
advice could you give to them in terms of the
Man.
marriage part of it?
Yeah. That first year, it's always a doozy.
Mhm.
You're not going to get any sleep. Y'all are probably going to argue with each other. Just let things go, let things slip easy. It's just because y'all are tired.
Yeah.
But as soon as you possibly can, build into your marriage schedule at least one night every 2 weeks where you guys can go out. Even if it's just get a piece of pizza together and talk. But you got to do that. And when you have, if you have two or three kids or the kids start getting older, something else I always tell, couples that are struggling with kids is would you die for your kids? And their answer is always, oh, I'll do anything for my kids. I'll do anything for my kids.
Hmm.
And it's like, but where is that attitude for your spouse? Because before the kids ever came into the world, it was just the two of you, and y'all were absolutely in love to this point, right? And so
Right.
you got to keep that kindled by spending time together. Just plain and simple, man. Kids will
That's
kids will
awesome.
survive without mom and dad for a couple hours every week or two. You got to schedule it.
That's
Got to
awesome.
schedule it. Yeah.
Would you say that you guys were able to do that when they were at the younger stage? Because of course, I think well, I met you guys when
Yeah.
your youngest Skylar was 0. She was
hmm
0 years old.
hmm
and then I don't have enough brain power in the world to do the math after that in terms of how old everybody else was. But yet and still, everybody was fairly young.
Yeah.
I think at that point, Liliana was the oldest, and she was 11 or 12.
Right.
Um, and so probably 11. But at the same time, like everybody's really, really young. Your oldest is 11 on
Right.
down.
Hmm.
Did you guys do that or separate time from the kids when in that time of life?
Yeah, that was a harder season, so you're right on the question. But you can just get what's the word I'm looking for? Just I don't know. Try to think of ways. So,
Hmm.
for instance, when we first moved to Santa Clarita, we didn't really know anybody, and we're not going to just let somebody just watch our kid. You know what I mean? Or our
Hmm.
kids, right? And our kids weren't quite old enough to babysit yet each other.
Hmm.
So there was a season like that where what we would do is we would that's when we started our movie nights, where the kids
Mm.
would have to have their own separate movie night in the room, and we would do like popcorn for them, candy, ice cream, or something. And then they knew that those Friday nights or those Saturday nights, mom and dad were going to be in the living room, and we had our own movie, we had our own dinner. We would, do things like that. And so we just taught our kids to respect that time.
Right.
So during that season, that's kind of what we did. And if we could get a break, we would try, maybe go for a quick walk or something. That was a little bit better.
Right.
But yeah, just try to come up with things, but not doing anything at all is it's not.
It's not the answer.
Yeah, it's not the answer. So
That's good.
yeah,
And just like even one of my memories is like I remember watching the kids one night and Skylar. So Skylar is his youngest. She had to go through a stage where I would literally ask somebody to translate. She would try to say something to me,
I didn't
and
know either.
I was like, what is she saying?
Yeah,
Like she's repeated herself 3 times. And I'm so sorry, I don't get it. Like I don't know what she's saying.
yeah,
Um, so she came out of that, and right after that, she started, saying real things and stuff like that. I think one night when I was on babysitting duty with her, we watched everybody. We watched Greatest Showman,
nice.
and she sung every word.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
love that
Skylar,
one.
you just learned how to talk. How are you singing this
Yeah,
song?
yeah, yep.
And so that was some good times
That
right
girl will
there.
get you too, man. She's so full of God's spirit. Like, I think one of her first phrases to me was like, "Hey, Dad, do you think Jesus would have done that like that?" It's like,
Wow, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, but
That's so crazy. But yeah, that's so good. Thank you so much for joining us. I know, I mean, if we wanted to, honestly, viewers, listeners, we could do this for 6 hours straight. You'd probably get 6 hours straight of us just going on random things, especially to talk sports. And so we might have them back to talk some sports
yeah,
here shortly. Um,
Warriors in Florida State. That's all there is.
Warriors and Florida State. But no, thank you so much for coming on. From bottom of my heart, and I know from Dee Dee, who's my co-host. We thank you for that. For fathers out there, thank you for
Yeah,
just continuing effort that you showing up. And even though you're not perfect, um, you are getting better and taking steps and steps and steps and dealing and enduring and persevering. I want you guys to know that, fathers, that is
yeah,
paying off in tremendous feats, not only to your your kids, but also the people who see you and the people who you cross. So
yeah.
thank
Can
you
I
for
say
that.
one more thing real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just to drop something. Dads that are listening, whether you're a single dad, maybe you went through a divorce and your kids aren't with you all the time, or you are with your kids all the time and you're in the home. It goes for either one. Um, Strong dads help build security in a daughter's heart and mind. God
Hmm.
created us different, obviously, as men and women. And with women, God created a void in their heart and their soul for security, love. When they don't get that, they feel like they have to go find it somewhere. And this world is more than willing to fill their heart with stuff that's not really going to fill them in a positive way. Dads, you have the greatest amount of influence on your daughters.
Hmm.
And I just want to encourage you guys that the way they watch you treat other women or love their mom says so much to them. And it also fills them with tremendous amount of security that will make your daughters strong and not weak. Right. And also for our sons, obviously as men, we have so many young boys. I believe it's up to 67% in America of homes are fatherless homes, or at least absentee dad or homes with dads.
Wow.
And we're seeing a huge increase of young men going to juvie and jail. And 92% of those, they were saying statistically, or 90%, something like that, they all came from a broken home without a dad. So
Hmm.
for whatever it's worth, guys, don't give up hope, and we got to learn how to keep digging and becoming better at what we are as fathers. So just want to encourage you guys, keep digging, keep grinding it, keep learning, keep growing, and keep trusting God in it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Jonathan, for
Yes.
coming through. For
Yeah.
any
Thank
of
you,
you
guys.
guys, if you have any type of questions our way, please feel to utilize that and connect with us via our online platform. But man, no, thank you a lot for coming through, Jonathan,
Thank
man.
you for the invite. Go Seminoles. It's coming up.
Go Seminoles. I'm sorry, guys, but we have to end on that statement.
Yes.
Hey, this is your girl Dee Dee from Set Apart with Ren and Dee Dee. Thank you so much for tuning in to this latest installment. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts.